Welcome, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our Reviewer Credits webinar today. My name's Gareth Dyke. I'm the Academic Director at Reviewer Credits, and we are just waiting for a few moments for all of our participants to join us here in the Zoom room. We're going to have a webinar today presented by Dr. Farooq Rathore, and he's a consultant from Pakistan. We're going to introduce Dr. Farooq in just a moment while we wait for all of our wonderful participants to join us here in the Zoom room. If you're joining us, Gareth is my name. This is a Reviewer Credits webinar presentation. You should be able to see the chat box, the Zoom chat box. So why not drop us a quick note in the chat box, introduce yourself, let us know where you're from. Let's quickly have a look at that. If you're joining us and you'd like to say hello, please do put your information into the chat box. Say hello to everybody. I think that that would be a great way to get started. I will also really quickly say a few things about our platform, Reviewer Credits. If you haven't had the chance to see the Reviewer Credits platform yet, then do jump on over and have a quick look at the Reviewer Credits platform. Here we are. You should be able to see my screen. Reviewer Credits is the only accredited platform, as we'll talk about in a moment, where you can get rewards for the work that you do with journals. Here's the main Reviewer Credits page. Thank you so much, everybody, for saying hello to us in the chat. It's great to see so many colleagues joining us from all over the world. If you haven't signed up yet on Reviewer Credits as a peer reviewer, then I do encourage you to do that. You should be able to see my screen. We're having a look quickly at what we offer to peer reviewers. You sign up on Reviewer Credits, you do peer review for journals, you then get credits from the journals for the peer review that you do, and then you can get awards. You can go over into our reward center here as well. You can see on the screen, you will be able to redeem the credits that you get from peer reviewing for journals against our rewards. We've got editing services, we've got video creation services, we've got translation services, we've got audio file creation services, pre-submission and post-submission services to help you as a researcher reviewer, get the best out of your writing and publishing. And I think we are almost ready to get started. I will mention some other features of the Reviewer Credits site a little bit later on in our presentation today, but do also have a look at our training courses. Here you can see on the screen the training courses. I'll be pasting links to these into the chat box as we go through our presentation today. And I think that with that, since we have lots of people joining us in the Zoom room, I will now pass over to my colleague, Dr. Farooq Rathore. Farooq, I'm just going to make you the host for this session. Let's just do that quickly. So you should now be able to turn on your video. Dr. Rathore, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you very much for the invitation, Gareth. And I look forward to this exciting webinar. So we have like more than 70 participants right at the start. So hopefully have many more. So I'll just jump in and start my talk. Just give me a second. I'm going to set up a couple of things. Okay.
Hopefully you should now be able to. Yes, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Can you please confirm that you can see my screen and hear my voice clearly? Fantastic. Thank you very much. Just give me a second. Going to set up a couple of things. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Farooq Rathore. As you can see, basically, I'm a rehabilitation medicine consultant from Pakistan. That's my primary job description. In addition, I'm also a pain medicine specialist. I'm a medical educationist. I'm a trainer, researcher, and a mentor. Today, I'm talking to you in my capacity as one of the reviewer credit ambassador for Pakistan. I have been involved, I've been making use of this reviewer credit services for more than 3 years now. And I can tell you that these are high quality services and they can actually improve your peer reviewing skills and can reward you for the time that you put in your peer review activities. So what I'm going to do is that, again, thank you. Many of you have already introduced yourselves, but again, I'm sort of going to have another round of introduction. And again, please grab your keyboards and first of all, simply write down the name of the country in the chat box from which you are attending this webinar. Only simply write the name of the country. Okay, UAE, good. Ghana, Africa, Bangladesh, Nepal, Iraq, Hungary, nice. Pakistan, wow. So, wow, fantastic. So it seems that we have representation from like different continents, different countries. And this is the beauty of this online teaching and training session, that you can talk and you can interact with people from all around the globe. And once I'm done with my webinar, I really hope that you guys can also share your experiences, put in your 2 cents, and then we can learn from each other. Thank you very much. Moving forward, within which discipline does your research fall? And my apologies, I was unable to put in every discipline. There are more than 20. So I just sort of like use the first top 10. So are you from medical sciences, social sciences, agriculture, computer, chemical, physical, finance, business, engineering, earth, or some other? Simply write, okay. Others, okay. Finance, nice. MD, medical science, translation, business, health, medical, signal processing, biotechnology, literature, health, medicine, social, wow, wow, wow. Fantastic. Chemical engineering, nursing, nice. Business, ENT, fantastic. Thank you very much. So it seems that we have a very diverse group of participants for today, which I mean is actually a strength of this training session. Going forward, at what stage of your career are you in? Are you a student or a master or a bachelor level students, maybe a doctorate who's doing PhD, a faculty, a senior faculty, or independent researcher or something else? Now let's see what our colleagues have to say. Full professor, wow, nice. Associate, nice. Okay. Researcher, faculty, PhD, nice, fantastic. Doctorate, PI, PhD, nice. Masters, engineering, professor, faculty, dean, assistant, associate, wow, wow, wow. Can't even like read all of those. Physical therapist, fantastic. Professor, researcher, associate, PhD, fantastic. So again, just shows the diversity of people who are coming from different parts of the world and bringing in a diversity of experience and also of subject. Fantastic. Now comes the question, how many manuscripts have you published in any category? They don't necessarily have to be an original research article. They could be a letter to the editor and an editorial, a small commentary, simply numbers. 30, 110, fantastic. 3, more than 20, 110, 147, fantastic. 16, 20, nice. 34, 181, wow. 40, 10, fantastic. So we have a sort of a combination of people who have published a lot, and then there are maybe young researcher, novice, or young student who are just starting in. So whenever there is a combination where you have at one end people who come with experience, who have done a lot, and then you have people who are willing to learn, who have sort of like passion, who have time and energy, the young ones, this is an excellent combination. That experience meets with compassion and enthusiasm, and you have good results. Fantastic. Now comes the question that how many manuscripts you have reviewed so far? 1 to 5, 6 to 10, 10 to 20, or more than 20? Or you haven't done any peer review so far? Reviewed more than 200, 6 to 10, okay. 2, many, more than 20, 6 to 10, 20, 60 plus 100, 4 for 55, wow, fantastic. So again, nice. So many of you, it seems, that are very expert in peer review. So probably we can learn from each other today, inshallah. So moving on, a bit of disclaimer before I start formally with my presentation. First of all, please be very clear that this particular webinar of 1 hour is based on my own personal experience, which means I'm a physician. So my background is from healthcare sciences. I'm not an expert in engineering, maybe biochemical sciences, computer sciences, and other non-medical sciences. That's the first thing. Number 2, I was brought up and my whole education is from Pakistan, but I keep on going around in other parts of the world as well. But primarily my experience is mostly of working inside Pakistan and reviewing for many national and international biomedical journals. So you can actually have a difference of opinion, and I'm totally okay with that. Secondly, we need to understand that, yes, after COVID-19, most of our training has moved online, which is actually a fantastic opportunity for different people from different parts of the globe to interact with each other and learn from each other. But I personally feel, and I strongly feel, that no amount of online interaction can replace an in-person experience. So this is primarily a 3-hour in-person face-to-face workshop that I usually conduct inside and outside Pakistan. So we do a lot of hands-on activity. We do some mock reviews. We review each other's comments, and then we actually do some activities which give us actual feedback. And then we learn because it's a hands-on activity. But for this webinar, I have converted that 3-hour workshop into a summarized, abridged version of 45 minutes. So that's a disclaimer that I might skip some things, but we can probably discuss them later on, or you can email me. And the most important thing that you need to understand before you start listening to this webinar, this is simply a lecture or maybe a webinar or a teaching training session, that's all. But you need to understand that peer review is a skill. And a skill cannot be mastered by simply listening to YouTube videos, by lectures and tutorials and experts. Skills have to be mastered by practicing and doing it again and again. So the basic aim of this webinar is to actually show you some tools, give you a roadmap, and probably give you some ideas, tips, and tricks on how to perform a better and high quality peer review. And then I would like you to go in the academic world and start reviewing articles. And the more articles you review, the better you will become, because peer review is a skill and it is not something that you can learn from lectures. Okay, moving forward. The first thing is we need to understand what is peer review. There are many definitions. I like this one. So peer review is basically an independent assessment of a research paper by expert in the field, which means if you are asked to review a paper, the academia considers you as an expert in that particular field. It is a process. It's a skill. It is not a one-time activity. It takes a lot of time. It has many facets, and that's why we call it a process. The main aim is to assess the validity and the quality and sometimes even the originality of manuscript, that whether they are fit enough to be published in that particular journal. This is what peer review is all about. And the main purpose is that for why people are invited as peer reviews is that to maintain the integrity of science. We are part of a whole big community of global researchers. So whether you have just published your first manuscript or you might have published your 200th manuscript, you are all part of the same community. And being part of the community means that we all have some responsibilities. And one of the responsibilities is to give back to the society, to the community that has helped us to reach this place. So whenever I wrote an article, there were some anonymous peer reviewers from different parts of the world who reviewed my articles and said that whether it is good enough to be published or not. Some of them gave me really good, thorough, insightful comments. Some of them actually rejected my manuscript. That's fine. But I learned from that experience. And the ultimate aim was to maintain the integrity of science. Don't let poor quality science get published. I mean, people still have loopholes and they somehow still manage to publish low quality research. But as peer reviewers, it is our aim to maintain the integrity of global science because we are part of a larger community. Just to recap for my young colleagues who have not performed the peer review or who are about to submit their article for publication, this is how a peer review process looks like. I'm going to sort of like divide into simple steps. So first of all, a researcher, a scholar, a physician, or someone who writes an article completes the manuscript and then submits the manuscript usually by an online submission system to the editor. When the article is submitted, the editorial staff usually checks the article for instruction, whether it is compliant with the instruction to author, whether it is as per the format that has been described, whether there are no major issues with the manuscript. If there are any major issues, they are going to send back your articles for reformatting or maybe rewriting. But if the article passes the initial quality checklist, they are going to send that article to expert in your field, in your particular field. So if it is a medical article, it goes to doctors. If it is a computer science article, it goes to the computer scientists. The agriculture article goes to the people in agriculture and forestry, like that, right? So again, depending on the policy of the journal, they may send it to minimum of 2, but major journals can actually send your article up to 5 peer reviewers. Please remember that, up to 5, right? So the peer reviewers are going to review that article, and I'm going to tell you there are many ways of reviewing that, anonymously and non-anonymously, and they're going to give some certain comments. If the article is of very poor quality, they're going to simply reject the article and submit their recommendation. Please do not accept the article. If the article is, it's fine, but not a very high quality and has some issues, a good peer reviewer is going to identify the issues and write a very good comprehensive report that is going to be forwarded back, that's going to be sent back to the author, and the author is now supposed to review the article as per the comments of the peer review report, right? And then you send the article, revised article back again. Many times the article gets accepted on first revision, but in many cases, the reviewers or the editorial staff is not happy with the changes that we have made, and you have to undergo many cycles of revision. This is what editorial peer review process is all about, simplified version. Now, moving forward, you need to understand, before you become a good peer reviewer, you need to understand that how many different type of peer reviews are available out there. So some people like divide them into more than 10 types, but I would rather say there are around 6 and 7 types that have been accepted globally by almost all major publishing groups. And I'm only going to stick to those one. The first one that most of us are very familiar with is one is known as a single blind peer review, which means the author does not know the identity of the reviewer, but the reviewer will know the identity of author, that who are the authors, their name, their affiliation, and their country. Then comes the double blind. In double blind, no one knows the identity of each other. So a blinded manuscript will be sent to the reviewer, which means you will only get the text, the results, and the figures and other stuff. But you're not going to know the identity of the author, and the authors are not going to know the identity of the reviewer who has reviewed the article for them. Open peer review has become very popular over the last couple of years, in which the identity of the author and reviewer is known by the both parties, even during or after the peer review process. Every kind of peer review has certain strengths and weaknesses. So some people would not like to sort of display their identity. So they might actually regret if the journal is following a open peer review process. So it all depends. And that's why as a good peer reviewer, you need to be very clear what kind of peer review the journal follows. Then there's a transparent peer review in which the review report is actually posted with a published article. So if you go in BMC, the Biomed Central, so many of the journals in BMC would actually publish the peer review report after the publication of article. Now, it all depends on the reviewer, whether they are comfortable with their name being displayed on the report or not. But this transparent peer review has become a norm for many journals. So you need to know what is happening all around the globe. Collaborative review is again something that is not allowed by all journals, but some journals do allow a collaborative review. And it is a very good way of learning how to do a good peer review. And I would recommend and request the senior people who are attending this webinar, the professors, the deans, the head of departments, that if a journal allows collaborative peer review and you get an invitation for a peer review, please involve your PhD students, your young faculty members, and maybe even your students in this peer review process. So in this collaborative peer review process, 2 people, usually a senior person, experienced peer reviewer, and a novice or a young researcher, they collaboratively perform a peer review of a manuscript and then submit a report collaboratively. But it all depends on the journal policy. If they allow, I personally feel it's a very good opportunity for senior people to teach and transfer the skill of peer review to their youngsters. So please do consider this thing. Cascading review is the one in which usually one publishing group publishes hundreds of journals. So your article might get rejected from one journal after the peer review comments, and they would ask you, can we transfer this article to another sister journal? And if you say yes, they would ask you, can we transfer your peer review report to the sister journals as well? And it goes on. So this is known as a cascading review. And the last but not the least is known as the post-publication peer review, or again, becoming pretty common, in which the peer review occurs after a manuscript is posted online. F1000 probably does that. In addition, the Curious Medical Journal, once the article is published, you can go online and comment on the published article as well. So if you want to become a good peer reviewer, first of all, you need to understand the different facets of peer reviews and different type of peer reviews that are now being used all around the globe, because the world is changing. And as the world change, the professionals and the researcher also need to update their knowledge and they need to change. So whenever you sign up or you get an invitation for a peer review, it's very, very important that you know that what kind of peer review do they exercise. If you're not comfortable with an open peer review, you should say no, Because if you actually agree to the peer review and then submit your peer review report, your peer review report is going to be displayed along with the article, along with your name, title, affiliation. If you are not comfortable with that, probably you should say no. And if you are someone who wants to give back to the society and train more people, you should be actually involved more in collaborative peer review. And if you want to sort of like teach others how to do a good peer review, you actually might want to do the post-publication peer review in collaboration with your colleagues. So some article is published. You both go online as a group and you start reviewing that article, and then you submit your comments online. So again, these different kind of peer reviews give you a sort of opportunity to improve your skills and contribute to the global science. So please do that. If you want to become a good peer review, I personally feel, again, my own personal experience, there are only two things that you need to do. Number one is you need to understand why peer review is important. You need to develop a passion for this peer review. Otherwise, honestly speaking, for most of us, it is a thankless job. Most of us do these peer review activities in our own time without any personal and professional accreditation and recognition. So you need to be convinced that peer review is a good activity. Only once you are passionate, you really believe that peer review is a good thing, it contributes to global science, it is one of the ways that I'm going back to the scientific community, you can do a peer review. And the second thing is you have to train for the task. So let's start with the first thing, that why do you need to do a peer review and spend your time and invest your energies? First of all, please remember, not everyone gets an invitation for peer review. If you get an invitation for a peer review from a good journal, it is an honor and privilege. So one of the researchers, when the Web of Science was known as Publons, she said, reviewing is a privilege. It's something I enjoy because it's a unique way to keep up to date on cutting edge research in the field while also critically appraising the writing and finding. So please remember, it is an honor, it is a privilege to be invited as a peer reviewer. Number two, it is a testimonial to your expertise. Now, the problem was many of us were actually doing a lot of peer reviews, but there was no recognition, no reward system, and there was no record where I could display. Now it is possible because of ReviewerCredits and many other websites that actually you can create your online digital profile where you can have a record of your peer reviews activity, and that record can be displayed online or can be downloaded in form of certificate. There are many. I'm going to give you two examples. Web of Science, which recently, a couple of months back, which acquired that famous Publons, and the ReviewerCredits. So I'll give you my own example. So this is my profile, my public profile on Web of Science. I don't need to, and you need to understand, in today's hyper-connected world, you need to have your online digital profile and online digital activities. You can't, progress, and you can't live without having a strong online digital profile. And then you can't spend the whole of your life and your day in creating an online digital profile. So what do? So you actually go online and become free member of websites like Web of Science and also of ReviewerCredits. And whenever you do a academic activity like peer reviewing, you send them an email or details, and they're going to populate and they're going to update your profile. So I can easily share this profile with anyone that I have performed 356 verified peer reviews. I have been peer reviewing for more than a decade, but in old days, there was no Web of Science or ReviewerCredits. So I don't have access, and I don't have any proof that I have done more peer reviews. But ever since I came to know about Web of Science, Publons, ReviewerCredits, PeerRef, now I make sure that whenever I do a peer review, I always send a report to these websites so that I can update my online profile. So please do that. Again, my ReviewerCredits profile, the difference is because the ReviewerCredits has sort of a very stringent and a strong criteria to verify. Publons or the Web of Science would actually verify anything that you email to them. And then I can actually download a record of my talks, the conference talks, the workshop talks, and also of the peer review certificates from ReviewerCredits. I can submit it as a part of my application for a job. I can display it on my LinkedIn profile. I can share it with my CV. So again, these are the things that were not available when we were like students and residents and young faculty member. But for most of you people, now these things are available online and free of cost. So please make the best use of these things if you want to become a good peer reviewer. Then how many of you have an ORC ID? Simply answer in the chat box, yes or no. How many of you have an ORC ID? Yes, yes, good. Oh, fantastic. No. Most of you said yes, thank you very much. And some of you said no, fantastic, no problem. So you need to understand, if you want to survive and thrive in the academic culture of 21st century, you must have an ORC ID. It's absolutely important. Not going to go in detail, but simply saying it's free of cost. It's a unique ID which is tagged to your name, and they're going to again update and populate whatever you publish and whatever you do peer review. So for example, I have 341 reviews registered in ORC ID. So and this is my public profile. Anyone can go online, and just to highlight two things. So my background and field is rehabilitation medicine, physical medicine and rehabilitation medicine, disability management. So far, I have performed 24 verified peer reviews for American Journal of PM&R, which is one of the top 3 journals in PMR around the globe. So if anyone wants to have a good peer reviewer, if he or she sees my profile, he or she will feel very confident in inviting me, which means by displaying my profile openly, I'm actually going to invite more opportunities for high quality peer reviews. Same goes for BMJ Open. So we all, I mean, the doctors or the healthcare professionals, they know the value of BMJ, British Medical Journal. Well, again, one of the top 3 journals in the world. So BMJ recently, a couple of years back, has launched BMJ Open, a gold access open access journal. So far, I have performed 7 open access peer reviews for BMJ Open, which means that if a high quality journal is looking for a good reviewer based in Southeast Asia, in Pakistan, for disability management, probably my name is going to come at least in the top 10. So this is how you actually not only do peer reviews, you give back to the society, then you create a digital profile and more opportunities come your way. So this is how it works. It's a very positive cycle that keeps on giving back and forth. So please do that. Again, I gave you examples. It increases your credibility, and then the editors and people who manage journals, they are more confident in inviting you. And the most important thing about peer review is that it actually gives you a glimpse into the future. It updates you about the latest trends, and it also gives you food for thought and ideas. You would say, how? So please remember, whenever an article is published, even if it is published online ahead of print, it is actually sort of like has been reviewed a couple of times, and maybe it was this particular research was done maybe a couple of months to years back. But whenever you are reviewing a raw manuscript, a new manuscript that has been submitted to you, please remember that is something that has not been published yet. The research might have been completed only a couple of weeks back, maybe 2 months back, which means you are actually seeing where the world is moving, where the future lies, what is hot and what is not, what are the latest research trends. So whenever you are doing peer reviews, you're actually having a glimpse into the future, that where the scientific community and the world is moving. And that's why becoming a good peer reviewer is very, very important, so that you get more invitations and you keep on remain updated about where the future lies. And please remember, if you are a good peer reviewer, there's a possibility you are going to be a better medical or scientific writer. Why? Whenever you review articles and you highlight mistake and shortcomings in someone else's writing, hopefully you are going to take a note and you're not going to repeat the same mistakes whenever you write a manuscript. Number 1. Number 2, it's very, very difficult to see issues and shortcomings in your own manuscripts, honestly, in your own research, because it's your own creation. I mean, it's very difficult to see problems with your own writing. But when you see another person's writing or research from another perspective, you are able to highlight the issues and the problems. And then you say, okay, I'm not going to make the mistake that I recently highlighted in someone else's manuscript. So ultimately, it is going to improve your writing skills, and not only peer review activity is going to give you dividends, it's also going to improve your writing skills. And this has been sort of supported by literature. So Lerbeck and Hansen said that peer review activity is actually a career building activity. It develops writing skills through exposure to other manuscript and fosters relationship with fellow scholar and scientific leader. And they also highlight that especially for young scientists, young researchers, young students who are starting out, these activities are especially important, because it's going to enhance your career, your profiles, and your job opportunities. So please seriously think of becoming a good peer reviewer by engaging in this activity. So these were the things that almost everyone knew for the last 100 and 200 years whenever they used to review a manuscript. Things have changed in the last 2 decades, and now they are actually tangible, monetary and non-monetary benefits and reward for doing peer review, for engaging in this academic activity, for sparing your own personal time, investing your energies. And that is also sort of an incentive that why you should be doing peer reviews. So for example, again, I'm going to talk of, I told you it's my own experience. So for example, in Pakistan, some journals, not all, some journals are going to give you a small, I mean, it's small, but then still it is something better than nothing. They're going to offer you a small monetary compensation for the original research articles that you review. So that is some sort of compensation, and something is better than nothing. Then many journals, which are open access journal, are going to offer you coupons for 25, 35, and maybe 50% discount on the article processing fee if you review an article for them. Again, a good opportunity and a good reward. Then, for example, Wiley InterScience. So Wiley InterScience is going to offer you 30% discount on all products, excluding journals, which are available on their website, mostly books. So you can get a 30% discount on an academic book on Wiley InterScience if you perform a good peer review for one of the journals published by Wiley InterScience. Again, it's a benefit, it's a reward, right? And this is very interesting, access to databases. So I'll give you one example. So whenever you do a review for some articles in Elsevier, right? Elsevier is one of the largest publishing group in the world. So they actually give you access to the Elsevier database for 30 days. So for example, look, this is my own Reviewer Hub activity. So I have so far, I have around 150 days of access of Elsevier through this peer review activity. And it's absolutely fantastic because my organization does not offer me any access to the Scopus and Elsevier. But by reviewing articles, I keep on stacking them. So even if I review 10 to 15 articles in 1 year for Elsevier, I actually get 1 whole year access of Scopus and Elsevier and of Science Direct for free. So it is a reward. It is a tangible reward that I get for investing my own time and energies in peer reviewing activities. So you should be doing that as well. Some organization, they offer you CME points for the review that you perform. And again, I'm going to talk about reviewer credits. They have brought in a very unique model, which is not being offered by any other website. And this is redemption of reward points. So whenever you do peer reviews or you collect some points, you can go online on Reviewer Credit Reward Center, and you can redeem these points for many different activities and many different services, including writing, video creation, statistical analysis, advanced help, thesis writing, consultancy for researchers, and so many different things. So please go online and explore all these things. And this peer review activity is going to give you dividends and rewards and other many good things as well. Now, the second point that I want to emphasize, if you want to become a good peer reviewer, apart from the passion that is only going to come when you are totally convinced that this is a very good activity, is that you have to train for the task. Yes, it's important. Why? All of you are professionals from different backgrounds: medical, agriculture, science, computer, social sciences. So all of you actually spend some time in your own particular field, studying, doing experiments, writing, listening to lectures, doing hands-on activities, and only then you were certified that you are good enough to be called a lecturer, assistant professor, a researcher, or professor, or dean in your own subject and specialty, right? This is how it happened. So, I mean, when I started doing peer review more than 15 years ago, again, because I work in Pakistan, a developing country, because of lack of access of resources, these online resources were not available. I did not have many opportunities to learn this peer review. I had to learn by hit and trial, on-job training, by doing peer review myself, listening and writing and stuff like that. But for most of you who are starting peer review, or even those of you who are expert peer reviewers, you need to understand that you can actually become a good peer reviewer before you start by training for the task. There are many options available out there. Almost every major publishing group offers some training. I'm only going to stick to major 6 or 7, which are totally free of cost, because I know many of you researchers are from Southeast Asia, from Africa, and from countries who cannot afford to pay hundreds of US dollars. So again, starting off, the first resource that I'm going to share is the Power Up course by ReviewerCredits. I'm mentioning this course for a couple of reasons. First of all, this course is by my friend Gareth Dyke. Fantastic, excellent teacher. You will love the way he teaches. And the most important thing is this course is free only till 30th of June. So you guys have to sort of make the best use of these 6 days. Please enroll in this course. It's a pretty short course, not a very long course. You can actually do it for in a couple of hours to maybe like 2 hours. And you can see it gives you an overview of the whole process, why to do peer review, what to expect from the peer review process, the right mindset, efficient reading and reviewing the manuscript, and how to create a constructive communication that can be written down in form of peer review report. So please, this Power Up course is free of cost only till 30th of June. So please enroll in this online free course and get expert training from my friend Gareth Dyke. Then Elsevier Researcher Academy is an excellent resource for anyone from any part of the world and from any background to learn the art of manuscript writing and research in journal. And one of the modules of Elsevier Researcher Academy is peer review course. It's a certified peer review course. There are around 8 to 12 modules, and these modules range from 45 minutes to probably 90 minutes. And at the end of each module, there are small quizzes and questions that you have to answer, and then you get a PDF certificate for your accomplishment. So an excellent, high quality, free online course from Elsevier Researcher Academy. Please go online and explore this one. Wolters Kluwer and Editech have launched 2 courses. The big course or the mega course is probably for $150 US, but the smaller course that you can complete within 3 to 6 hours is totally free of cost. And that is good enough for most of us because it gives you the overview of the process and how to do a good peer review. So again, a free resources available online. Taylor and Francis, again, a very big name in publishing, and they have created these 6 online training modules. Very small module can be completed in less than 1 hour because each module is just 3 to 5 minutes. So 6 modules are not going to take more than 45 minutes, but they give you an overview of the process. So please go online and explore them. Then Nature is a very big publishing group, and Nature Masterclass offers this focus on peer review to researchers in developing country free. It's a very high cost masterclass, but this particular peer review one is free of cost for researchers based in developing world. So it's an opportunity that you might want to explore. American Chemical Society has a 1 to 2 hour online reviewer lab course. Again, so if you, and it doesn't matter that whether you are from a chemical sciences background or not, you can learn the art of peer review from anyone. So this is a good resource. I would strongly recommend it as well. Then PLOS is one of the mega journals. It publishes a lot of journals, Public Library of Science. So PLOS has a reviewer center. They do not offer you a course, but they do offer you a lot of good resources, including templates on how to create a peer review report. So please go online and explore it. Wiley Author Services, again, not a course per se, a video course, but they have many different kind of resources that you can utilize and improve your quality of peer review. Council of Science Editors from Europe have very good recommendations that you must read at least once if you want to review an article for an international journal, because international journals sometimes have very stringent criteria and you have to do the peer review as per their instructions. But the most important thing that I must tell you is it doesn't matter how many resources you have. If you don't know how to use them, it will never be enough. So can I ask my colleagues that how many resources have you used from the resources that I have shared? How many resources have you used so far? 1, 2, 3, or 4? Just simply write the number or say none. 1, 2, 3, 2. None. Okay, none. So again, some of you have done 3, but many of you have not done any course, and some of you have only done one of the courses. So please remember, these resources are free. They are available online. You have to prioritize your time. The main issue with anyone in today's world is that once we were student and resident and young faculty members, we had a lack of information. We kept on going right and left looking for information. For you guys, the problem is information overload and distraction and lack of attention. You open up your mobile and then you get lost in social media and waste your time for hours and hours. And at the end of the day, most of us have not achieved anything. So you have to develop a routine of self-control where you stick to one course at one time and you only get up when you have completed the course. Because please remember, many of the courses are just 1 hour courses. Some are like 3 hour courses. Only the Elsevier course is a longer course that might actually take 8 to 10 hours. So please try to prioritize your time. Don't waste your time and don't simply look through resources, because it doesn't matter how many resources you have. If you don't know how to use them, it will never be enough. Moving forward, now comes to a question. So if you want to become a good peer reviewer, there are certain things that you have to follow. And since I said in my disclaimer, my background is from medical science, but I wanted to make this webinar palatable to almost everyone who is listening to this from any part of the world, from any background. So I'm going to only give you some tips and tricks that how can you perform a good peer review and improve your quality of peer reviews. So the first thing is, please remember, you may, depending on your expertise, you may get a lot of invitations. Please only accept the invitation if it is within your area of expertise and you have the time. Usually the journal will clearly tell you, you have 14 days, 21 days, and some journals do say you have 6 weeks to do the peer review. So if you don't have time, please don't commit. But if you think you are the expert, you want to really review that one, you might want to send an email to the editor that I really want to review this, I'm going to do this, but can you please give me a 2 weeks, 4 weeks waiver? And many a time they do give you a waiver. That's the first thing. Number 2, expertise is very, very important. And when we talk of expertise, you know, like there are so many specialties and subspecialties. Again, I'm going to talk of my medical science. So for example, it doesn't matter you're a doctor. Like there are like more than 70 different specialties and subspecialties, right? So an orthopedic cannot review an article of dermatology. A dermatologist cannot review an article of psychiatry. And even if you talk of like surgeons, an orthopedic surgeon should not be reviewing article for, let's say, a neurosurgeon, or a neurosurgeon should ideally not be reviewing article for a thoracic surgery journal. So it has to be within your own expertise. You don't need to understand that, number 1. Number 2, whenever you say, yes, I'm going to review the article, at least once, carefully read the instruction to authors, that what do they demand from the author whenever they submit a manuscript. And many journals have a very clearly laid out guidelines for peer review. If such guidelines are available, you must read and follow those guidelines while creating your peer review report. Then it's a very simple thing. And this is what I have learned in my own experience. Whenever you are asked to review an article or manuscript, right? Simply do a Google search, or for a medicine people, do a Medline search, putting in the title or abstract of the article. In the last 1 year, I have actually detected 3 articles that were plagiarized, or they were duplicate publication, which means they were already published somewhere else, or large chunk of the article had been published somewhere else, and now the author had submitted the same article to another journal. I actually picked up 3 articles just in the last 1 year by using this very simple technique. And obviously they got rejected, and the editor said, thank you very much for bringing it to our notice, we missed it. But you can also do that, because remember, it is your responsibility to maintain the integrity of science. Some people don't bother about that, but you are the sentinel, you are the guard, you are the person at the gate. Don't let crappy and bad quality science go through. Then once you are about to start your review, please understand, you're not going to do a peer review only by reading the article once. It's almost impossible. No one is that kind of expert that you read the article and manuscript once and you can prepare a very good peer review. No, it's not possible. And in many cases, you have to read it more than 3 times, because you have to understand things, you have to make sense of things. Sometimes you have to go back to the literature, you have to confirm whether these facts are correct or not. So there's so many things. And that's why peer review activity is a very time-taking task. Sometimes it takes hours and hours. Sometimes it actually takes many days, and sometimes even weeks if it is a very big, huge article with a lot of data set. So please commit only if you have time and expertise. Then it's a good idea to take notes, or maybe if it is a PDF, annotate, or maybe even insert comments as you read. So many journals that I review for, especially in Pakistani journals, they send me the files in Word document form. And whenever I do a correction or whenever I do a comment, I directly insert the comment where I want the author to make a change. But again, it depends on the journal policy. Some journals do not allow you to modify or make any annotations. This is for your own consumption, because you want to go through the manuscript. And as you go through, you might want to take notes. I'm going to review this section again. This section looks good. Oh, this section does not fit in well, and stuff like that, right? It makes your job easier. Then many journals will provide you a specific template, and you have to follow the template. You have to sometimes do the checklist thing. Sometimes you have to answer yes or no and unsure. Whatever it is, you have to follow the instruction to author. But if there's no template available, there are many online templates available. You can go on PLOS and Taylor and Francis Reviewer Center, and they're going to give you free online templates. So please download those templates and use those templates to improve the quality of your peer review report. And you have to please understand the report is going to be holistic, encompassing each section, but you have to give a report of each section in detail and separately. You need to understand this, right? Some general points, again, once you are reading the manuscript, please just note the coherence and flow of ideas, right? Sometimes, I mean, especially, no offense, but I know people do that, plagiarize things, copy, paste. Sometimes the flow of idea and coherence is not there at all. So, I mean, the author is writing about one thing in one paragraph, and in the second paragraph, suddenly he or she goes 180 degree and starts saying something else. And you're like, what is this nonsense all about? So you have to see and feel the flow of ideas and coherence. Okay, a bit of controversial thing. People usually say, do not comment upon the quality of language and grammar. That's not your job. English is the job of edits. Again, a personal thing. I'm a Pakistani, so my primary mother tongue is Urdu. I'm a non-English, I'm a non-native, English is not my native language, right? I also write in English language. Whatever people say, let me tell you to my colleagues who are non-native English speakers, that please remember the quality of language, grammar, and syntax does matter in a scientific manuscript. I mean, it doesn't matter if you've done a very good research if I am unable to understand what you have written. So yes, many people say that, quality of writing and language is not your concern, but I'm really sorry. In my case, it is my concern. Why? Because if I read a very poor quality manuscript in which I cannot make any sense of the flow of ideas, coherence, language, grammar, probably I'm not going to sort of like give very high weightage to the methodology, because this thing also reflects that the methodology might be flawed as well. So please, my colleagues who are non-native English speakers, improve the quality of language, grammar, and syntax whenever you are submitting an article to an international biomedical journal, because please remember, it's a competition and millions of people like you from more than 240 countries around the globe are competing for the same slot, same researchers, right? Apart from that, again, not going in detail, some general tips. So for example, in introduction, it's very important that apart from giving a background, the author must give a problem statement. What is the current state of science and what are their research goal and hypothesis? So if someone has not even mentioned the research goal, hypothesis, aims, and objective of the research in the last paragraph of introduction, probably it's a very poor quality manuscript, because the person has missed out on one of the most important elements of introduction. In methodology, at least in medical science, which involve human beings, ethical approval is mandatory. If there's no ethical approval, usually the editor is not going to submit that article for review, but sometimes these articles slip in and you have to review an article where there's no mention of ethical review committee approval or trial registration. That article does not hold good and will not be processed further. Ethical concerns are main concern, at least in biomedical science. Then, if you have to see that whether appropriate details of the material, method, whether there are drugs, there are some instruments or some excise, intervention, whatever, it has to be mentioned very clearly, along with all the appropriate demographics that are part of the main research question. And again, if it is an article on which has quantitative data, so quantitative data is analyzed by certain statistical softwares, and statistical analysis is usually a subsection of the methodology. It has to be mentioned very clearly. If it is not there, probably the article is not good. The results must be clearly stated, and they should be consistent with the experimental approach, which has been described in the methodology section and linked with the research objectives and aims. The discussion should be a comparison of what the authors have found, and they must compare and contrast their results with the existing literature, both the national, local, regional literature and international literature as well. It's important. And references, sometimes you have to review the reference as well because you are the expert. So sometimes you see that the references are too old. We are living in a world where sometimes articles are published up to 1 year ahead of publication before they come in print. So you can't simply put in 20 years old articles in your manuscript and then expect that people are going to pass that article. No, sir. I mean, few of the references, if they are historical articles, you can put that. But more than at least half of your references should be 5 years or earlier. Then sometimes people actually put in incorrect references. And this is common when people, I know because people keep on sharing their stories with me. So sometimes people actually start writing, they write the whole article, and then they randomly start inserting the references. And that does not make any sense, incorrect. Sometimes they are incomplete, and sometimes if you try to cross-check the references, they are actually irrelevant. So please don't do these mistakes as an author, because a good reviewer is going to pick these up. Once you are going to write your peer review report, please remember, please provide a constructive feedback. It's not something personal. It's an academic activity. It is a contribution to science. So I'll give you 3 tips on how to provide a constructive feedback. First of all, please be clear. Do not use vague words. Improve the introduction. I mean, what do you mean by improve the introduction? How to improve? Do you want me to reduce the word count? Do you want me to put in more literature search? Do you want me to discuss something else? So please be clear that which part of the manuscript you would like the author to improve or revise, and how. You have to be very, very clear. Then be positive and be constructive. Sort of like encourage the author to revise their manuscript in a positive manner instead of giving very vague, mean, and negative comments that are going to break their spirits. So please don't do that, right? They should be, because again, it is a scientific endeavor. So you would not like someone to give you mean and idiotic comments, right? So please don't do that for other people as well. And please remember, it's a professional activity. Your feedback or your report should be professional, right? Free from errors. I mean, how odd it would look if you say the language, grammar, syntax of this article is too low. And actually the language, grammar, syntax of your peer review report is as bad as the article itself. So please be professional, be respectful. And people who are, especially people who are based in the high income countries or developed world, maybe Northern America, Europe, Australia, Japan, whenever you guys review an article from a developing country, maybe Africa, Southeast Asia, low economic country, please remember and try to understand our perspective as well. Sometimes, not sometimes, most of the time, we also try to do our best in our limited resources. We want to publish in good journals as well. But because of lack of time, resources, our language barrier, and lack of support, we are unable to create that kind of good manuscript that probably a person from Northern America, Canada, or Europe will produce. So whenever you give us a feedback, please consider these things as well. Don't simply reject an article just because it is from a developing country. Be professional, sort of like encourage them to improve. And maybe the next revision is going to be a very good one that is going to be acceptable to the journal. So the last slide, that what makes a good peer review, some good tips. You have to submit it in time. If they say 14 days, it should be 14 days. If you don't have 14 days, ask for a waiver, or please don't review that one. Say, I don't have time. It should be specific, it should be biased, and you have to give a section-wise constructive feedback, keeping it professional, as I just explained. And don't simply critique. This is bad, this is bad, this is not right. So what? You are an expert. Can you give me an idea? How can I improve that? This is your job as a peer reviewer. If you do that, you will be marked as a good peer reviewers by the editors. If you don't do that, then people are going to mark you as someone who provides very vague, unconstructive, and like low quality feedback, and they are not going to invite you back for their reviewing process. And again, I have just discussed this. Yes, it should be focusing more on the language, syntax, and grammar, but having good grammar, syntax, language, I think is very important as well. Then you have to maintain confidentiality. So for example, whenever I review an article using the Word file, I don't use my own name. I use the name of the journal, or I write myself as reviewer. So you need to maintain the confidentiality and don't disclose if the journal has a policy of double-blind peer review. Avoid personal comments or criticism because it's a professional academic activity and there is no room for any kind of personal attacks or bad comments. And if you have any potential conflicting or competing interest, you have to mention them clearly. So the summary of the webinar is that peer review is a very rewarding and important activity and contribution to the scientific community and society. It not improves you professionally, it improves you personally as well. It increases your academic credibility if you have a strong online academic digital profile. And at least in 21st century now, it has both monetary and non-monetary tangible benefits that you can make use of. And now there are many quality resources available. I would request all of you to please go online, explore them, learn the art of peer reviewing, apply them in improving your peer reviews, and document your contribution using Web of Science or Reviewer Credit. Before we start with the Q&A, can I request you people to please scan this code and give me a feedback for this webinar. It's important because this allows me to improve my sort of presentation. And for other, I'm also going to share. I'm going to share this as a link as well. Just give me a second. Oops. So, yeah. So I'm going to share this link here as well. Yeah. So can you please click the link, sort of like give me a feedback. It takes like 3 minutes. And then I'm going to start with the Q&A. In the meantime, I'm going to, okay.
Absolutely. This is absolutely fantastic, Farooq. Thank you so much. Like, I can't turn my video back on, so I'll just leave you like as the host.
No, sure.
No, we don't need to. It's fine. We'll leave the code up. I've just got some questions that I've been collecting from the chat.
Sure, please.
In the course of the
the
course of the event. So let me just say quickly that we're going to give everybody a certificate for attending this event, and everybody will also get a link to the recording of this event as well. We'll put that onto our YouTube on an unlisted link, so that is going to be available to everybody as well. We got a number of questions through the course of the event. If you have questions, everybody, now's the time to put them into the chat box. One question about statistics, Dr. Farooq, how to interpret statistics, whether they're correct or not, if you're not an expert in that as part of the peer review. Do you have any comments on that?
Okay, so again, I'll give the question based on my own expertise as a medical doctor. So again, it depends on the type of manuscript. So for example, I review many kind of manuscript for medical science. So if it's a very simple observational study, the statistics are not going to be very complex. They're not going to be very detailed, and they're going to be the statistics that are within my own domain, number one. So that's not a big deal. But in some cases, yes, the statistics are very complex. And at least many of the international journals, they actually ask you, would you like a statistician to review the statistical part or this methodology? And if it is not written there, probably it's a good idea if you are not very confident in reviewing the statistical part, you review everything else, and then you put in a note to the editor that I was unable to adequately or comment as an expert on the statistical review. I would be grateful if you can get a biostatistician expertise on this. So there is no harm in being honest and open. But at the end of the day, probably it's a good idea to improve your own understanding of biostatistics as well, because it's also a skill and a lot of good resources are available online.
Absolutely. And in our reward center, the ReviewerCredits Reward Center, we have several services that you can have a look at to help with biostatistics. So if you've done review for another journal, you've got some reviewer credits, you can spend those reviewer credits on biostatistics services that we have available in the reward center. So thank you for that. We have another question about AI tools. Dr. Farooq, Grammarly, Trinker, and so on can be used for language correction and proofreading as part of the peer review process. Would you recommend that?
Okay, so there language editing services are totally ethical. The only thing is that you have to sort of like disclose. So language editing services were being used by many researchers for last couple of many years. Ever since this AI tools came in, so it became easier for people even based in developing world to get hold of these AI tools. So Grammarly, Trinka, all these are basically language editing tools. They improve the quality of your language, grammar, and syntax. They don't do anything with the science itself, the methodology. And if you sort of like, and many journals have a very clear-cut policy that you only have to disclose that we used a language, grammar, and editing software or service, and that's fine. So that's not a big deal. But probably, again, improving the language, grammar, and syntax is not in the purview of a peer reviewer. Because if you start like reviewing the whole article and start improving the language, grammar, and syntax, that might actually take a lot of time. I know some people who do that, but if you have resources and time, you might want to do that. But many people actually only say that the language, grammar, syntax is not up to the mark. I would recommend that the author should go to an English-speaking author or use some online services to improve the quality of manuscript. So it all depends what you do, but it is totally ethical to use Trinka, Grammarly, other AI tools to improve the language, grammar, and syntax quality of your article. Gareth, can we take some Q&A from this written Q&A box? Can you give me a minute? Yeah.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have some of the same questions. There's a follow-up question from Dr. Ali Shah in the Q&A box about ChatGPT. Have you used ChatGPT as a peer reviewer? Has this made your life difficult or easy? What are your personal experiences of ChatGPT?
Okay, so my recommendation again, don't sort of like outsource everything to AI and other tools. At the end of the day, this is my personal take. So we are human beings and there are certain things that define us. So peer review activity itself should be done by a human being. I have no doubt about that. Why? Because even if you outsource the peer review activity to an AI tool, honestly speaking, you are actually compromising on your own critical thinking skills. Because a peer review process is a very important critical analysis tool. It helps you speed reading. It helps you identify the gaps. It helps you become a better writer yourself. So if you actually outsource everything to an AI, honestly, you are losing on your own skills, number one. But having said that, if you create a peer review report and you want to improve the quality, again, I said, make it more professional. So I personally think that there's no harm in asking ChatGPT or maybe Bing or maybe Bard from Google or some other software to again improve the professional tone of that peer review report. But that's the only way I think AI can help you. If you totally delegate your responsibility of a peer review to an AI tool, I would rather not support that because it actually hurts your own critical thinking. This is my take on this.
Okay, perfect. We've got a quick comment about registering peer reviews on ReviewerCredits. This is in process. So if you've registered on ReviewerCredits and you're waiting for approval, that is in process. So thank you for your patience. I've pasted the links a number of times, both for registering on ReviewerCredits, which we recommend that you do in order to get recognition for the peer reviews that you do, as well as our training courses. You can see that link as well in the chat box. We've got training courses that are free to sign up for as well. We've got a quick question from Dr. Raza in the chat. I sense that this session focused on natural science. I'm interested to know if your suggested techniques are also applicable to social sciences.
Yes, I think, I talked about principles. I did not sort of like focus on medical science or agricultural science. So I talked of principles, and I do think that the principles that I talked about, the resources that I shared, that they are common to almost every science, whether natural science, medical science, healthcare, anything else. So, I mean, these principles are equally applicable to any researcher who is trying to do any peer review in any subject. Obviously, every subject then has their own sort of like nitty-gritties and something that makes them a class apart. That's, I understand. But my principles that I discuss in this webinar are equally applicable to anyone who is from any different subject or specialty.
Fantastic. Well, we're coming to the end of our event today, everybody. I've just put my email address as well in the chat box. Don't forget to scan Dr. Farooq Rathore's code if you'd like to provide him with some feedback on this absolutely fantastic presentation today. Let me say one more time that everybody listening to this will get a certificate of attendance and also a link to the video recording. Don't forget to sign up for our ReviewerCredits newsletter. You can get access to webinars that we're going to be doing once a month at least, as well as our training courses and other content. Dr. Rathore, thank you so much for your time today, and thank you so much for the fantastic presentation, and also for your support of reviewer credits. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure talking to you all. Just give me a second before I. This is my email, guys. If you want to have a copy of the presentation, the PDF copy, so I can sort of share it. So it's farooqrathore@gmail.com. So I'll display it for a moment, then we can stop. Gareth, I think I have one unanswered question,
Sure.
which I would like to answer. Yeah.
Go
So the question is from Faiz Ali Shah. Kindly comment if a peer reviewer has detected any scientific misconduct in any manuscript like duplicate submission, duplicate publication, salami slices, etc. How can it be conveyed to editor? What guidelines should be followed? ICMG, COOP, and link or reading material. So as I just mentioned, if you see that there is an element of ethical misconduct in a manuscript that you are reviewing, stop reviewing the manuscript and send an email to the editor of that journal, clearly explaining that what are your concerns, and sort of back up your claim with sort of like support. So I gave you example of, I picked up 3 articles this year alone, which were a case of duplicate publication, and a large part was actually plagiarized. So I gave the link to the published articles, and then I actually explained that why the manuscript that you have sent me is actually a duplicate copy of the same publication that was published 6 months ago in another journal. The editor came back to me with an email. She thanked me, and she said that we are going to withdraw this manuscript from our database, and we are going to ban the authors as well, and we are going to ask them for an explanation. So you can simply email the editor for any concerns that you have at any time of the this review process. So that's not a big deal.
Perfect. And thank you everybody for your attendance today. Thank you so much. Dr. Farooq, for your time, and have a great day, everybody. We'll see you in our next Reviewer Credits webinar event. Thank you, and have a great day.